destroying of all the nations around them in the book of Deuteronomy and Joshua points to spiritually?
What all the destroying of the nations in Deuteronomy and Joshua when the conquest of Canaan? Well, it points to, I think that's too big a question, because individual battles can have their own spiritual meanings, and we could look at it as sending forth the gospel into the world in some cases, and we could also look at it as Canaan as a type of the world, and the casting out of the nations of Canaan, disinheriting the inhabitants of the earth, and then taking over the earth. So Israel is given, I guess if you're going to look in a wide way, a general way, you can look at it as in the sense of God giving the earth to his people according to the promise of Abraham, but there are people currently on the earth inhabiting it, possessing it, the unsaved of the world. And so the nations in Canaan would represent the nations of the world. And it's God's plan, though, to give the nation, or to give the whole earth to his elect. And so they carry out the judgment. They go from nation to nation. But you see, there's problems with it because the Lord ends up leaving some nations to prove them. So it's not a complete and total destruction of all the nations. Historically, we know that from the early chapters in Judges. And that's why we can't really say that this is the only way of looking at it. But it is also interesting that when they finally conquer sufficient nations, not all the nations, that the Lord has Joshua give portions to the various tribes as their inheritance, and they divide them up. So they divide the land of Canaan and give it to the Israelites, and that may tie into this final judgment where God is dividing the world. And it would just be a figure to kind of paint that kind of picture. The world is being divided because it's being given away to the elect of God as our inheritance, our eternal inheritance. But thank you for that question.